Welcome back, Tyrants. Today we're going to be continuing on to part 2 of my Straw Hat discussion. In the last episode, we talked about Chopper, Jinbei, Sanji, Usopp, and Nami. So today we're going to move on to the last 5, and we're going to see who has that top spot. Let's get right back to it, starting off with Zoro. Zoro is another character that I believe is a pretty huge fan favorite, and is lower than where most people will put him. And the biggest reason that Zoro doesn't go any higher than where he is now is simply because of his character development. Throughout the story, the Zoro we've seen has always kind of been the same Zoro. I think there have been small increases to the kind of character that Zoro is, but there really hasn't been a huge development or change to Zoro. Zoro at his core has been Zoro the entire time, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but sometimes you do like to see big stages of growth, especially in characters that attain a lot of the spotlight. Now, this isn't to say that Zoro doesn't have any kind of development or any kind of character at all, because it's definitely there, and it's definitely a well-written portion of his design. Zoro is the right hand to Luffy and easily the most loyal member of the crew. You can look through all of Zoro's accomplishments, all of Zoro's kind of feats, and you can see that he boasts the most loyalty to Luffy. He boasts the most loyalty to the crew itself. And you can also see that in the way he acts with the crew, in the way he interacts, and the way he takes hold of certain situations and kind of guides the crew where Luffy doesn't or can't. We can look at his introduction to Robin, for example, and when she joins the crew. Of all the crew members, he's the one who doesn't really have that scene where he's convinced she's a part of the crew. He doesn't really have the belief that she belongs on the ship, and I think he keeps an eye on her. And I think he does that up until the events of Enies Lobby in Water 7. I think he kind of has this eye on her as, will she be here or will she betray us? And he's watching over her because no one else in the crew is really doing that. They accepted Robin pretty fast. You can look at when Usopp left the crew, and Zoro has his moment where he tells the crew if Usopp wants to come back, he has to apologize. He can't just rejoin. You know, they're not just out here playing at pirates. They're trying to do something. They're trying to make a legacy. They're trying to go after One Piece. Luffy wants to be the pirate king. You can't falter or waver in the face of adversity. You know, things like that, if they push you back, if they stop you from moving forward, that's going to hurt your goal, and it's going to hurt the people around you. And I think Zoro knows that, and I think he's the only one who really has the nerve to say it out loud. One thing to remember is that most of these people are still pretty young. They're in their teenage years or just getting out of their teenage years. So there's a lot that they still have to learn about the world. And I think Zoro is he's more mature in that aspect, and that's why he interacts with the crew the way he does. And often, when Zoro has those interactions, you see the other crew members agree. They may not be happy with it, they may not be okay with his methods, but they do agree with what he's trying to say. We even see Sanji kind of give in and say, no, he's right, we have to listen to Zoro. There are moments in the new world where Zoro's kind of telling Luffy to get it together, this is real. We are in the new world, we're facing huge threats, we have to be ready. So you have all these moments where Zoro's kind of being that voice of reason. Zoro is being the right-hand man. He's telling the crew what to do and how to do it in a way that Luffy doesn't. His other strong character trait is his perseverance and conviction. So Zoro has the dream and the goal of being the world's greatest swordsman. And I think we all believe he's going to get there. And we know that'll be his dream until he dies. We also know that Zoro is willing to risk his life for Luffy. He's willing to risk everything he has, his goals, his ambitions, for Luffy's goals and ambitions. Because that's what he fights for. He fights for Luffy. And in his mind, the king of the pirates should have no less than the world's greatest swordsman. And that's how those two goals interact. But Zoro will give up that goal of world's best if it means that Luffy gets his goal of pirate king. And I think it's less of Zoro giving up and more of him saying that if I can't get past this hurdle, then that means I wasn't fit to be on the Pirate King's crew. I wasn't fit to be the world's greatest. So the way Zoro tends to look at things is that if I'm not strong enough to get past this, then that means I don't belong here. That means I don't have what it takes to reach the top. So I don't see it as giving up. I see it as if Zoro runs into an obstacle, he either overcomes it or he dies trying. Those are Zoro's only two options. And of course we have amazing character moments with Zoro practically every arc. You know, you have Zoro versus Kuma, where he gives his all to fight for not only Luffy's sake, but his crew's sake, against this warlord that seems pretty much invincible. And he never gives up on that. He keeps trying, and eventually he says, if I can't make it, then I'll at least save my captain and my crew. You know, that's all I can do. That's all I could do to get up to this point, is to save them. You have moments like in Little Garden when he wanted to cut his feet off so he can get back into the fight. You have Arlong Park where he's fighting against Hachi, he's fighting against Arlong, even though he's horribly wounded, even though Mihawk did a number on him and he still can't even move the way he should. He doesn't have his swords, you know, he's pretty much at his lowest and he's still fighting as hard as he can. And that's where Zoro's character shines, is just his strong conviction to get past obstacles. Zoro's even said before, you know, bring on the hardship, it's preferred on a path of carnage. And I think that kind of symbolizes Zoro as an entire character. That's his methodology as a character. But that's not to say he doesn't have his faults. I think Zoro shines most when he's fighting, when he's showing that conviction, but there are times when his character falls flat. There are periods in between, you know, these epic moments of Zoro where nothing's really happening. His crew interactions are usually pretty light. His interactions with other people in general are actually pretty light if he's not fighting. And when he does interact, he's more or less the same person he is in a fight. You know, he's serious, he's stoic. And I feel like he's only gotten more like that as the years have progressed for him. A lot of the other characters have certain personalities when they interact with the rest of the crew. And I don't think Zoro has that. I think Zoro just has Zoro, which can be dry at times. You know, every Zoro moment isn't an epic moment. So at the times when he's not staring down death, he kind of doesn't have a lot going on that makes him a more interesting character for me. I think Wano is probably going to be the best place to get some Zoro development, so we'll see how that turns out. I do believe that we're going to see some more character development from Zoro in this arc. I think that we're going to see a decent change to Zoro, maybe not a complete rewrite of a character, but we'll see some change there. And next up is the Captain Monkey D. Luffy. Now, in just about any series, the main character is not my favorite, and Luffy is no exception to that rule. As far as main characters go, I think Luffy is very likable, and I think he does have more growth than you see in other shows, but I think Luffy still has his fair set of flaws. The thing I like most about Luffy is that Luffy cares about his friends, his family, and that's it. That's all. Luffy is not a hero. Luffy is not a good guy in that sense, where he just cares about anybody who needs help. Luffy is very straight and narrow when it comes to who he actually cares about and who doesn't matter to him. And I like that a lot, because that means Luffy isn't just holding his hand out to anyone and everyone who asks for it. Luffy looks for reason, he looks for cause. You know, if you're a friend, of course you get my hand, but if I don't know you, what reason do I have to help you, and why should I risk myself and my crew for your sake? And even if he agrees to help them, Luffy finds more ways to have them help themselves than Luffy help them. Luffy is very keen on having people pave their own path rather than have someone do it for them. You see that with Vivi, you see that with Momo, you see that with Rebecca. You see all these people that have asked for Luffy's help and that he's agreed to help, but he makes sure that he's not the one doing all the heavy lifting. He makes sure that they do something to change themselves, to make it so that they don't have to hold their hand out for him next time. And that's something that's always been with Luffy, and that's something that I hope never changes about Luffy. I think that's one of his best traits, if not his best trait, and I want that to be with him throughout the entire series. As far as development goes, I think Luffy has seen a lot of development as a main character and as a character in general. I know that he's often seen as pretty much the same person from pre-time skip to post-time skip, but I think there is a noticeable difference in how Luffy acts and interacts with the crew and the world. I think the thing that really pushed his character to start changing is the interaction with Aokiji, right before the Water 7 arc starts. Here, we get introduced to one of the most powerful people in the verse, and we get introduced to a threat in which Luffy cannot overcome, in which the crew cannot overcome. And so Luffy makes the decision to have his crew leave, and he solos Aokiji and of course loses, but he saves his crew. But that realization that he can't get past this obstacle gives Luffy that driving force to say, I need to be stronger. It's not a matter of my crew can't beat this person, it's that I can't. If I can't, no one else can. And Luffy takes that to heart because he doesn't want to lose people. Luffy hates losing people. And so to have someone be able to come in and just say, I've chosen you for death. Aokiji could just walk in there and say, I decide that Usopp dies. I decide that Robin dies. I decide that Nami dies. And Luffy can't stop that. So that pushes him to create pretty much entirely new fighting styles in Gear 2nd and Gear 3rd. And even though that these both have pretty bad effects on his body, this is what he has to do to kind of combat the strong forces coming up forward. He's telling himself that it doesn't matter what happens to my body as long as my friends are safe. As long as I can keep them from being hurt, whatever happens to me is fine. And to have a captain go that far out for his crew I think it's a big deal. Because I think you normally see it the other way around, where like the crew is so loyal to their captain where they give their lives for him. But Luffy in no sense would tolerate something like that. He would always be the one giving his life for his crew. And we see that with the whole issue with Zoro versus Kuma, and why they never tell Luffy, because they know how Luffy would react to that. And after that moment with Aokiji, we just keep seeing moments where huge portions of character development flow in. The separation of the crew, Ace's death, the overwhelming power of the Yonko. Each of these things kind of boasts a new arc for Luffy to grow, and he grows in those arcs. We see growth in those arcs. And one of those good things about Luffy being the main character is that he hasn't stopped growing. He still has more to go, and we will still see more from him. And so that's what I'm most excited to see about Luffy. It's just how much more is he going to grow with these upcoming arcs. Next up is Brook. Now with Brook, I really don't see flaws in his character. I think Brook is just well written. I think he's funny. I think he's reliable. He's absolutely loyal to Luffy and the crew. He cares. There's so much good about Brook. If I would give him a flaw, I would say that he's not in the story as much as he should be. Brook started off as more of a meh character for me. I think in Thriller Bark, I definitely enjoyed having him there. But as the story went on pre-time skip, he kind of fell to the wayside and he was more of just comedy. He did cool things from time to time, but he wasn't all that into the story. It wasn't until post-time skip that I really began to like Brook. And that comes from his track record in Whole Cake Island mainly. Where honestly, I say Brook is the MVP of Whole Cake Island. Even though it's the year of Sanji and it's Sanji's arc to grow and develop, I think that was a huge arc for Brook, and one that he definitely needed. We see him take out Mother Caramel's picture. We see him fight Big Mom. We see how much he cares for Pedro and how he feels about Pedro's death. He gets the rubbing of the poneglyph and gets away with it. Just so many good moments from Brook that it's hard to find fault with him. If anything, people can say, maybe his comedy gags are too repetitive. Maybe they're not as funny, but I always enjoy them. And I also love that he doesn't really back down from challenges. If he's given an order from captain, he's going to do it. If he faces a challenge, he'll go against it until he can't. Brook is the kind of ride or die that you want in a crew. I really hope we get to see more of Brook, because I think just what he brings to the table as far as anything between comedy, seriousness, action, resolve, I think Brook carries all of that and he carries it well. And so I'd love to see more of it. Next on the list we have Franky. And Franky is a character that I've liked since his introduction. Ever since Franky was shown on the screen, I think I've enjoyed his character. Just the comedy, the hilariousness of the being that is Franky, the personality that is Franky. It's just entertaining to me. And it always is. You know, I never get tired of Franky. He's another character that suffers from not having a whole lot of screen time, even though when he's on screen, he's doing something awesome. The thing I like about Franky the most is that he's often used for comedy or for gags, but when the time calls for it, he can be very sensible. And it kind of calls back to his workings as a mob boss or a gang boss, but you know, we see that he is capable at all times. We see him handle situations like when they're trying to figure out what's going on with Ace's Devil Fruit and Dressrosa. You know, we see him switch from being a gag character to kind of, he's leading Luffy around, telling Luffy what he should do, how he should operate, and he's kind of working as Luffy's boss to help Luffy get their fruit back. And he's competent with it. You know, he's not making a joke out of it. He's being serious, and it's working. And it works well for Franky. And you see these moments where he kind of slips into that kind of stage of where he's being serious about something. And whenever he is, the crew is always there to listen and absorb the information. Like when he's talking to the crew about Kuma and how he saved the ship, and how Kuma is and was an ally of the crew. You know, everyone's listening, everyone's paying attention, and he's holding this aura of, okay, I'm going to be serious for a few seconds, you guys should listen, and they do. And I love when Franky has those moments. I also love how supportive Franky is of the crew. I feel like if the crew is ever down, if the crew feels like they can't do anything, Franky, more often than that, is one of the ones that'll give them that pep, give them that energy and that conviction to say, like, no, I can do this, or, you know, I got this. And he makes them believe in themselves. And I think that's just a good trait to have overall, especially in a crew. I think a lot of the development for Franky has already happened, and I like the character that Franky is. I like who he's become as a character. But I think there's still more that we can get from Franky. I think there's still more development, you know, more scenes, more interactions we can get from Franky to kind of build his character a little bit more. And I'm excited to see that happen. I think we'll get some of that in Wano, and I think we'll get some of that after Wano. I'm also just hoping that we get more Franky screen time, because it's always good. It's quality content. So this means that my favorite Straw Hat is Robin. Robin is one of my favorite characters of the series in its entirety, not just the crew. I feel like there's so much good we've gotten from Robin in the series so far, and I feel like there's so much untapped potential in Robin that we can still get. Of all characters, I think she suffers the most from having a lack of screen time, which is terrible because there's so much she can bring to the screen. My favorite thing about Robin is her development as a character since she's joined. And I think the tragedy of Robin is that her character development is understated. You know, it's hidden behind the rest of the crew because she's the more recluse, more stoic of the bunch, which is honestly an odd one out in that crew. I think she loses a lot of screen time and a lot of face to show how much she's developed. If you look at early Robin and compare it to Robin now, you'll see a huge difference in the way her character is. You'll notice it instantly. When she first joined, she was very stoic. She was very to herself, in which she always acted the same in every scenario. You know, if something big was happening, her expression would be the same. If nothing was happening, her expression would be the same. You know, she always carried the same expression, and that was, I think, more or less because she hadn't gotten quite comfortable with the crew yet. But once the ending of Water 7 and Ness Lobby happened, and I think the first instance of her really being a Straw Hat is when she agrees to go hang out with like Chopper and Luffy and Usopp and put the sticks in the nose and the mouth and kind of that whole dance gag. And that's showing the shell that she had break, you know, that defensive barrier that she had up for any crew, any organization she joined. It's showing that breaking. And once that starts breaking, we see in each arc how much more that goes away. We see her kind of join in or laugh at gags more often than not. We see more expressions from her. You know, like when she's talking about how cute the drawing of the dragon is, even though it's not cute, you know, she loves it. There's the ha face she makes when she sees that Luffy was beaten by Kaido. In Dressrosa, I think we get 2 face faults, you know, when she's dealing with the Tontadas. So we're seeing this person who was always more or less serious or had one expression. She's definitely changing for the better. You know, she's becoming a Straw Hat. her development is one that I would recommend everyone who likes the series go back and kind of just look at through a read through, because when it's all condensed, when you see it all at once, you can really see how much she's grown as a character. And there's also other things that haven't really changed about her that I still love, like her dark sense of humor. You know, how she makes jokes about when people disappear or when something happens, usually like they're dead or something terrible has happened to them, and it kind of startles the crew. I like that she laughs in the face of danger, laughs in the face of adversity. You know, she's more often than not in a good mood. The only thing that's ever really set her back is, you know, dealing with Aokiji, dealing with the Marines in Ohara. Otherwise, she has this demeanor about her that makes her scenes enjoyable. Her interactions with the other Straw Hat crew and other characters in general are often enjoyable just because of the way Robin's personality is. And one major thing I want to point out about Robin is that she was willing to die for the crew. And this is definitely something that other crew members have done. But one thing that I like to point out is that this wasn't the only option. And I think it shows how much she truly cares about this crew, because Aokiji mentions that if she wanted to, she could have gotten away. She could have left the crew to handle their own business and she would have been fine. And even if, you know, they would have fought the Straw Hat crew, like even if CP9 would have fought the Straw Hat crew, there's a good chance that they would have gotten away too. You know, Robin was being taken to Impel Down because she was a global threat. The crew, if they've gotten defeated, would have... We're not entirely sure. I don't think they would have gone to Impel Down. I don't think that would have been the end case for them. I think essentially something else would have happened in that aspect, but I think the crew would have been fine if Robin hadn't given herself up. But for Robin, making sure that the crew was okay was the only priority. If that meant she had to die, then that's what it meant. So Luffy telling her that not only will we not leave you as friends and as a crew, but we want you to live, that kind of sets it all over for Robin, where it's like, you know, she even says, I didn't think it was possible. I didn't think I was allowed to, you know, live and enjoy life. And that kind of sets off this entire character arc in which she's allowed to come out of her shell and grow. And I think that it makes her one of the most interesting characters, and I think that gives her the most potential to keep growing. I think there's still so much we don't know about Robin. We don't know anything about her time skip training, you know, what she did with Dragon, what she knows about Kuma, you know, what she knows about Sabo. There's still so much of her that we need to know just lore wise. And I think that as we get to know more about the Poneglyphs, more about the Void Century and the ancient history, we'll get to know more about Robin. And that's what I'm hoping for. But that is it. That is all of my Straw Hat characters ranked as far as personality goes. Like I said, I don't think any of the Straw Hats are bad characters or poorly written characters. I think some have more flaws than others. I think some deserve more screen time than others. But in all, I like all the Straw Hats, and I enjoy the companionship and the interactions they have with each other. I'm definitely excited to see who's going to be the final Straw Hat. If it is going to be Yamato, I welcome that. I so far have liked her as a character. I would like to see some things change about her, but we'll see how things progress as we get into Wano. We still don't know enough about her to know how she's going to be. But yeah, if you liked the video, go ahead and drop a like, go drop a dislike if you didn't like it. Leave a comment if you have, you know, any kind of arguments, or if you disagree with anything I said. Feel free to subscribe and enjoy. Have a great day.